You were always worthless, so take her secret baby. My family demanded at lunch, so I let them make their announcement at the first birthday party, then handed Ethan's family the DNA test and birth certificate. Some betrayals don't start with an open fight. They begin with fake smiles, warm invitations, and a sinister plan hidden behind a family meal. My name is Clara Vance. For 7 long years, I lived completely cut off from my parents, Diane and Richard, and my younger sister, Brooke. I built my life entirely from scratch, working day and night to establish my own financial business without a single dollar or word of support from them. So, when my mother called me out of nowhere with a sweet, overly affectionate voice, asking me to join them for a private lunch at a luxury hotel, I knew it wasn't out of love. It was a carefully calculated trap. To understand why I walked into that luxury restaurant with a calm, prepared heart, you have to understand my past. Growing up in the Vance household, love and affection were strictly reserved for my younger sister, Brooke. Brooke was glamorous, outgoing, and adored by our parents, while I was quiet, plain, and intentionally pushed into the background. My mother, Diane, treated me like an unpaid housekeeper, expecting me to clean up after everyone without a word of appreciation, while my father, Richard, spent his hard-earned money fulfilling Brooke's endless demands for designer clothes and social events. The only true warmth and affection I ever received as a child came from my grandparents, who saw my worth when no one else did. They taught me the true power of self-respect, patience, and how to stay strong and composed even when the people who are supposed to protect you try to tear you down. I still remember Brooke's 16th birthday party like it was yesterday. The entire house was decorated with fairy lights and fresh flowers, packed with dozens of high society guests and wealthy families. Brooke wore a custom designer dress, standing right at the center of attention as everyone showered her with gifts and compliments. Where was I during all of this? My mother forced me to stay inside the kitchen the entire evening. Dressed in worn-out clothes, I washed dirty dishes, prepped appetizers, and carried out trash bags through the back door. Whenever a curious guest wandered near the kitchen and asked who I was, Diane would laugh awkwardly, wave her hand dismissively, and say, "Oh, Clara just helps us out around the house." They erased my identity in my own home, treating me like hired help while showering Brooke with royal treatment. When I turned 18, both of my beloved grandparents passed away within a few months of each other. Their loss completely shattered my heart, but it also broke the final emotional chain keeping me tied to that toxic household. A week after their passing, on a day my parents completely forgot my birthday so they could buy Brooke a brand new sports car, I packed my single suitcase and walked out the front door. My father, Richard, didn't even look up from the television screen as I reached for the door handle. He just scoffed and said, "Don't come crawling back asking for money when you inevitably fail." I didn't fail. I worked double shifts at a local bakery, completed my college degree in financial management, and spent 7 long years quietly building my own successful accounting firm from the ground up. Sitting at the quiet corner table of the luxury restaurant, my mother, Diane, reached across the crisp white tablecloth and held my hand. Her touch felt icy, unnatural, and deeply rehearsed. "Clara, look at you," Diane said with a forced, sweet smile. "We've missed you so much over these years. Family should never stay apart like this." My father, Richard, sat beside her, nodding solemnly with an artificially warm expression, while Brooke sat scrolling through her phone, looking visibly annoyed to even be in my presence. I didn't pull my hand away, nor did I smile back. I simply took a slow, deliberate sip of water and looked at them with a calm face. "Let's skip the fake affection," I said in a quiet, steady voice. "Why am I here?" Richard leaned forward, lowering his voice slightly. "Brooke is engaged to Ethan Hayes. His family owns the largest real estate empire in the city." "That sounds like a big step for Brooke," I replied calmly, setting my glass down on the table. "It is," Diane whispered, leaning in closer and glancing around the restaurant to ensure no surrounding tables were listening. "Ethan's family is extremely traditional, Clara. They value reputation, heritage, and pure family values above everything else. But there's a small detail about Brooke that they don't know about, a detail that could ruin everything." Diane took a slow breath and continued in a hushed tone. "1 year ago, Brooke gave birth to a baby girl named Chloe. The father was some irresponsible guy from a nightclub who vanished the moment he found out. We've been keeping little Chloe completely hidden in a small rented flat on the outskirts of town with a paid nanny. I raised an eyebrow, looking at Brooke's dismissive face. Her reckless lifestyle of zero consequences had finally caught up with her. Baby Chloe's first birthday is in 3 weeks, Richard said bluntly, tapping his fingers impatiently against the table. We are throwing a massive, high-profile party at our estate, and Ethan's entire family will be attending as the guests of honor. I looked back and forth between my parents, keeping my expression completely unreadable. So where exactly do I fit into this scenario? I asked softly. Diane squeezed my hand tightly, her fake smile dissolving into an intense, desperate stare. We are going to use the birthday party to officially introduce Chloe to society, but we are not going to say she is Brooke's daughter. We are going to announce that Chloe is your secret daughter, Clara. You are single, you live alone, and frankly, your quiet reputation can take the hit. Brooke's future with Ethan cannot. I stared at them in utter disbelief, amazed at the sheer audacity of their plan. They weren't asking for my help or begging for a favor, they were commanding me as if I were still that helpless girl in their kitchen. Let's be realistic, Clara, Diane sneered, dropping her sweet act entirely as her voice hardened into cold bitterness. You were never pretty, charming, or desirable like Brooke. You're almost 30, completely unmarried, and spent your entire youth just working. Taking the blame for Chloe won't ruin your life, but if Ethan's traditional family finds out Brooke has a baby, the wedding is over. Brooke smirked, casually inspecting her manicure without a shred of remorse. Yeah, Clara, you owe this to the family. Besides, who would believe you if you tried to deny it? My parents and I will tell everyone you had a secret fling years ago. They sat back in their chairs with smug, confident expressions, completely convinced that they had backed me into an inescapable corner. They believed that their social status and threat of public rumors would force me to bow down and sacrifice my life just to keep their pride intact. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, and I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me upset. I see, I said softly, placing my linen napkin neatly beside my plate. So the big public announcement will be made at Chloe's first birthday party, right in front of Ethan Hayes and his entire family. My father nodded sternly, assuming my calmness was a sign of total surrender. Yes, and you will stand beside us and accept the child gracefully. I picked up my purse, stood up from the table, and looked down at them with a gentle, unbothered smile. All right, I'll see you at the party. My parents looked at each other with triumphant smiles, thinking my quiet answer meant complete surrender. They truly believed that I was still the same vulnerable 18-year-old girl who would willingly take the blame to avoid a family scene. What they failed to realize was that 7 long years running a successful business had taught me one fundamental rule. Never engage in a fight on the ground your enemy prepared for you. Build a bigger trap instead. The moment I stepped out of the luxury restaurant into the cool afternoon air, I didn't cry or panic. Instead, I pulled out my phone and placed 2 immediate phone calls, one to my trusted private investigator and another to my senior corporate attorney. I need 3 things within 2 weeks, I instructed my lawyer in a cold, precise voice. The original hospital records where baby Chloe was born, a court-certified DNA testing kit, and a thorough background check on the nanny holding the child. The game had officially begun. Over the next 2 weeks, while Diane and Richard were busy spending thousands of dollars planning Chloe's extravagant birthday party to impress Ethan Hayes, I was quietly working in the shadows. My investigator traced the private clinic on the outskirts of the city where Brooke had secretly checked in under a false name a year ago. Money talks, but legal subpoenas talk louder. Through proper legal channels and medical privacy requests, my lawyer secured the original birth register, complete with Brooke Vance's verified signature and thumb impression. Next, my investigator found the small, poorly maintained apartment where little Chloe was being kept. When I walked into that room with my lawyer, my heart broke. Baby Chloe was sitting on a cold floor, wearing dirty clothes, while the nanny sat watching TV. Brooke hadn't visited her own daughter in over 3 months, only sending small sums of money to keep the nanny quiet. I knelt beside the baby girl, and she looked up at me with big, bright eyes. In that moment, I knew I wasn't just doing this for revenge. I was going to save this child. With the nanny cooperating after seeing my lawyer's credentials, we arranged for a certified lab technician to collect official DNA samples from little Chloe. 3 days later, the results were delivered to my desk in a sealed envelope, mathematically proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Brooke was the biological mother. Alongside the DNA test, my team secured bank statements showing Diane's regular hush money transfers to the nanny, creating an ironclad paper trail that no amount of smooth talking or public denial could ever break. The day of the grand event arrived, and the Vance estate was transformed into a glittering paradise with crystal chandeliers, floral arches, and tables overflowing with expensive catering. Wealthy business executives, local politicians, and media personalities filled the hall, but all eyes were on Ethan Hayes and his high society family, who arrived looking regal and dignified. Diane and Richard moved through the crowd like proud royalty, beaming with fake confidence as they drop-fed subtle hints to guests that an emotional family reunion and a shocking announcement were about to take place. I stepped into the grand ballroom dressed in a sleek, tailored dark suit, quiet, elegant, and completely untroubled by the whispering crowd. I carried a single leather portfolio under my arm, containing the certified documents that would rewrite the evening. Diane spotted me from across the room and rushed over, her face tight with a mix of nervous relief and low-key panic. "You actually showed up," she whispered, grabbing my forearm tightly. "Remember the plan, Clara. When Richard calls you up, you take the baby and read the prepared statement without causing a scene. Don't ruin this for Brooke." I simply gave her a calm, empty smile, pulled my arm free, and walked toward the front of the room. Richard stepped up to the center stage, tapping his glass with a silver spoon to command the attention of the entire room. The grand hall fell dead silent as guests turned toward him, with Ethan Hayes and his parents standing right in the front row. "Friends and honored guests," Richard announced with a heavy, dramatic sigh, placing an affectionate arm around Brooke. "Tonight is a celebration of family, truth, and responsibility. As we prepare to join our beloved daughter Brooke with the Honorable Hayes family, we must address a long-held family secret with complete honesty." He paused, looking directly at me with a stern, commanding gaze before pointing his hand toward the stage. "Clara, please come forward and step into your responsibility." A low murmur rippled through the high society crowd as all eyes turned to me. Diane offered a tight, encouraging nod from the side of the stage, while Brooke stood beside her future in-laws, holding her chin high with a triumphant smile. They truly believed they had backed me into a corner where pride and public pressure would force me to obey. I walked up the stage stairs with slow, deliberate steps, my leather portfolio held firmly under my arm. Taking the microphone from my father's hand, I looked out over the sea of eager faces, stopping my gaze directly on Ethan Hayes and his parents. "Thank you, Richard," I said into the microphone, my clear, steady voice echoing effortlessly through the silent ballroom. "You're absolutely right about one thing. Tonight is about truth." Diane's fake smile instantly froze, and Richard reached out to snatch the microphone back, but I smoothly took a step out of his reach without missing a beat. "For 7 years, this family acted as if I didn't exist." I continued into the speaker system, my voice calm, smooth, and completely unbothered. "They pushed me out, erased my name, and ignored my existence until 3 weeks ago, when they suddenly needed a scapegoat. They sat me down at a luxury restaurant and told me that Brooke had a secret baby, born a year ago and hidden away in a rented apartment. And their brilliant solution to protect Brooke's reputation was to demand that I step up tonight and pretend that Chloe is my secret child." A sharp, collective gasp echoed across the grand hall, and the color drained from Diane's face as the crowd began to whisper in absolute shock. Brooke gasped, her face turning as pale as paper, while Richard shouted for the venue technicians to turn off the sound system. But I didn't flinch. Opening my leather portfolio, I pulled out 3 sets of certified legal documents and handed them directly down to Ethan Hayes' father in the front row. "Here is the official hospital birth certificate bearing Brooke's verified signature, a court-certified DNA test confirming her as the biological mother, and bank records showing regular hush money payments sent to a paid nanny," I stated calmly, my voice echoing through the stunned silence. Ethan's father scanned the official seals with a look of deep disgust, while Ethan slowly pulled his hand away from Brooke's grip, stepping back from her in complete disbelief. Brooke burst into hysterical tears, frantically reaching for Ethan's arm, but he completely ignored her, stepping back toward his mother, whose face had hardened into pure ice. "This is a lie. She forged those papers." Brooke shrieked, her frantic voice breaking as she looked around at the judging faces of the high society guests. Richard tried to step toward me with a furious, raised hand, but my private investigator, who had been standing discreetly near the entrance, stepped in front of him alongside two uniform officers. I calmly laid the microphone down on the podium, smoothed the front of my jacket, and looked at my parents one last time, watching their decades of fake status and cruelty crumble into utter disgrace. Turning away from the chaos, I walked down the stage steps and out into the quiet night, ready to start the legal adoption process for baby Chloe and leave the Vance family to face their self-made ruin forever. Leaving the chaos of the ballroom behind, I didn't celebrate the fall of my family or the destruction of Brooke's engagement. True strength isn't about enjoying your enemy's ruin, it's about building a peaceful life from the wreckage they left behind. First thing the next morning, accompanied by my attorney, I visited the small apartment on the edge of town and brought baby Chloe to my home for good. Looking into her soft, trusting eyes as she fell asleep safely in my arms, I knew that signing those adoption papers was the best decision I would ever make. I was raised in a cold house devoid of real affection, but Chloe would grow up knowing unconditional love, absolute security, and the unbreakable truth that she was never a secret to be hidden. She was a gift to be cherished. Over the next few months, news of the scandal destroyed what was left of the Vance family's reputation in high society. Ethan's family immediately cut off all business ties with my father, leaving his company on the brink of financial collapse, while Brooke found herself completely isolated by the very social circle she had spent her life trying to impress. They reached out to me multiple times, begging for forgiveness and asking me to drop the adoption proceedings, but I remained an unshakable wall. I legally finalized Chloe's adoption, giving her my last name and securing her future in a warm, loving home. For the first time in my life, the past no longer held any power over me. I had taken their cruelty and turned it into a foundation of genuine love and freedom for us both. Just when I thought the storm had finally passed and peace was ours, an unexpected shadow appeared on the horizon. 3 weeks after Chloe's adoption was finalized, my attorney received a legal notice from a high-profile law firm representing Marcus Thorne, a wealthy, ruthless businessman who had briefly dated Brooke 2 years ago. Having caught wind of the public fallout, Marcus claimed he had reason to believe Chloe might actually be his biological child, threatening to file a paternity suit to challenge the adoption. Standing in my quiet living room while watching Chloe play happily with her blocks, a cold chill ran through me, but my resolve only hardened. I had saved this child from neglect once, and no matter how powerful Marcus Thorne was, I was ready to protect her from anyone who viewed her as nothing more than a bargaining chip. Marcus Thorne didn't wait for the courtroom to make his presence felt. 2 days after sending the legal notice, he requested an urgent, private meeting at my attorney's office. Walking into the conference room, I found him sitting with a cold, calculated posture, flanked by two high-priced corporate lawyers. "I'm not here to play games, Clara," Marcus said smoothly, leaning forward with an unreadable expression. "Brooke hid this child from me, and if Chloe is a thorn, she belongs in a home with real power and unlimited resources, not with a single woman running on spite." I took my seat across from him, completely unfazed by his intimidating presence. Looking him straight in the eye, I replied calmly, "If you truly cared about being a father, Marcus, you would have looked for her a year ago, not just when her name appeared in the headlines to threaten your corporate image." Marcus's calm posture faltered for a fraction of a second, revealing a flicker of agitation beneath his polished exterior. "My private life is none of your business," he snapped, his voice dropping into a harsh, controlled whisper. "What is your business is knowing that I have the financial weight to prolong this legal battle until you're completely drained." But I had already done my homework before stepping into that room. My investigator had dug into Marcus's recent corporate affairs, discovering that his late grandfather's massive trust fund contained a strict clause. He needed a legitimate heir before his upcoming 35th birthday to secure full control of the family empire. Leaning back in my chair with a cool, unbothered smile, I rested my hands on the table and looked him dead in the eye. "You don't want a daughter, Marcus. You want a trust fund, and I won't let you use Chloe as an insurance policy." Marcus froze, the blood slowly draining from his face as his high-priced attorneys exchanged uneasy, covert glances. The quiet authority in my voice made it crystal clear that I wasn't just guessing. I had the paper trail, the dates, and the exact clause details ready to submit to the judge. "If we take this to court, Marcus," I said smoothly, my tone steady and completely unbothered, "every detail of your financial desperation and your sudden interest in a child you abandoned will be plastered across every financial news outlet in the country." He clenched his jaw, his hands tightening on the polished mahogany table as he realized he had vastly underestimated me. I was no longer the quiet, cast-aside daughter of the Vance family. I was a mother protecting her child, and no amount of wealth was going to break me. The silence in the conference room stretched thin as Marcus weighed the destruction of his corporate empire against his attempt to claim Chloe. He knew that taking this to court would destroy his reputation long before he ever reached the trust fund. Without saying another word, he slowly stood up, adjusted his designer suit, and gestured for his lawyers to follow him out, leaving the legal notice behind on the table as a forgotten piece of paper. As the glass door clicked shut, my lawyer let out a long breath of relief, but I simply closed my notebook with a calm, steady hand. I walked out into the warm afternoon sun, knowing that no shadow, threat, or ghost from the past would ever come between Chloe and the safe, peaceful life we had built together. A month of quiet, golden peace passed, and life with Chloe finally settled into a sweet, rhythmic routine. The laughter of a happy toddler filled the halls that once knew only silence, and for the first time in my life, home felt like a true sanctuary. Just as I was getting ready to close up my home office for the evening, a timid, hesitant knock sounded at my front door. Standing on the porch under the soft glow of the porch light was the last person I ever expected to see, Brooke. Stripped of her expensive makeup, designer clothes, and arrogant posture, she stood there looking fragile, pale, and deeply exhausted, holding a worn canvas bag in her hands. I stood in the doorway, my expression neutral and unreadable as I looked down at my sister. The arrogance that had defined Brooke for as long as I could remember was completely gone, replaced by a hollow defeat that reached her eyes. "Clara," her voice trembled, so low it was almost swallowed by the evening breeze. "I'm not here to start a fight, or to ask for money, or to cause trouble. I needed to see if she was okay." She didn't dare step inside, remaining on the porch as if an invisible wall kept her out. From the living room behind me, the soft sound of Chloe babbling happily over her toys drifted through the air. Brooke listened for a long second, her eyes glossing over with tears, before she lowered her head and quietly held out the canvas bag toward me, a small bundle containing Chloe's baby blanket and a few tiny keepsakes from her first few months. I reached out and took the bag, my hand steady and my gaze remaining entirely calm. Brooke looked up at me through a haze of quiet tears, swallowing hard as she forced out the words she had spent a lifetime avoiding. "Thank you, Clara, for being the mother I was too selfish to be." I didn't offer a dramatic speech, nor did I pretend that years of cold cruelty could be erased with a single tearful confession. I simply gave her a quiet, respectful nod, acknowledging her surrender without opening the door to the past. Brooke turned away slowly, stepping into the quiet darkness of the night, leaving behind the last lingering ghost of the Vance family name. Closing the front door, I walked back into the warm, golden light of the living room, picked up little Chloe, and held her close, finally at peace, knowing our story was built on an unbreakable foundation of love, truth, and freedom.